Right guys, welcome back to the channel, and a lot of people ask what goes into filming a battle report. I don't think a lot of people actually understand how much actually goes on behind the scenes in order to produce a battle report. For the people that have been down to Battle Bunker when I've been filming games on the Friday night open invite nights, you'll see obviously how I go around setting the armies up, doing the preview, and then obviously when you watch the battle report, you see the panning shots beforehand, then it cuts to the army view. So I do move things around a lot when I'm editing. I've got to make sure I've got the right lights and everything, and a whole host of things that you have to try and remember. Altogether, I would say a battle report from beginning to end to getting it uploaded, from the point of deciding I want to film a game to getting it up on YouTube, I would say is between 8 and 10 hours per battle report. So what I'm going to do in this video is basically, I've recorded myself recording a battle report, basically. So what you're going to see here is the process I went through of recording and editing the Imperial Knight battle report that I did with Craig. Now, bearing in mind that obviously this battle report is a little bit shorter than the normal ones. Most of my videos, full battle reports, are around about 2.5 hours long. So obviously the longer the battle report, the longer it takes. This one's about 1:50, so it does shave off about an hour of the overall time. Obviously the game was a little bit quicker, there was less dice rolling, less rules to remember and everything. But trying to remember to do all of this that you're going to see me do, in addition to remembering to play the game well, remembering all of your rules, remembering position of cameras, lighting, is the table clear of dice, do you know what you're going to be doing before you fire, have you double checked strengths and rules. Quite a lot of the time you'll hear I'll just check that, or when I'm editing I'll actually chop that bit out. So before any of that even begins, before you even get to the table, you're writing your lists. Now obviously with the Imperial Knight one it was very easy because there's not many models, there's not many options. If you go on something like Space Marines, you have got so many options. You've got to think about what you want to do with the army. Do you have a theme behind it? And that's not even included in the 10 hours that I've estimated for the battle report. So in this instance with Craig, obviously I built the AdMech list, as Craig wasn't that familiar with AdMech. He did obviously go through it and I told him what models and stuff I had. So we actually came out with pretty similar lists anyway, but because I know what the AdMech are doing and I know what models I've got, I knew obviously straight away, right, I'm fighting knights, I need neutron lasers, I need onagers, and I need robots. So I straight away didn't even bother thinking about the Vanguard and stuff like that. They were basically just whatever was left, we would tack on for points. So I would say probably a good 30 minutes to build your list. Obviously, I'm then negotiating with Craig when to come around, when he's available, and things like that. And I film battle reports when I get in from work if I film them at home. So I try to set the table up and set the armies out the day before to save time on the day itself. So obviously, say I'm filming a game on a Wednesday night. On a Tuesday night, I will set the table up and go through the deployment of the scenery and everything. So, without further ado, let's have a look and see what I do when I'm actually setting the table up. Right, so here we go. This is my gaming table, and you can see obviously it's built pretty high. It is high enough for me so I don't have to bend over. Behind me head, where I'm stood here, you might be able to see a little bit on the wall. I've actually got one of me wall lights up on the wall, suspended out the way. And what I'm doing here is, first of all, I'm thinking about setting up what kind of backdrop I want, and thinking about what kind of mat I want to use. In this instance, I wanted something quite dark and very red kind of thing to go with the whole Mars and House Crest. So what I'm doing here is, these boards are just foam board, which I've sprayed these on, and I'm actually fastening them to the wall here. I actually have a bulldog clip on a hook to keep the two of them flat against the wall. There is a little bit of blue tack there, but I find that it tends to pull away at the paint, so I tend not to do it too much. So I'm fastening both the boards up here. They actually tuck down a little bit behind the flat surface. The boards I've got 3 different backdrops that I've made up. I would like to make some more, but then what I'm doing is I'm going around the back of the table, and then we'll put them on in a little bit. Now, I know what mat I was pulling out here, obviously, because I set this up to record the video. But obviously, I've got about 15 mats there to go through. So basically, that's where all my mats are kept. I'm then rolling the mat out. And like I said, I knew I wanted something sort of Mars themed. And this is the Fallout Zone mat from Gamemat.eu. So here I'm just rolling it out, making sure it meets up to the edge. And there's no gaps between the lip and everything that I've got here. And then I'm going around the other side, and now I'm putting the backdrop on so I can get a feel of what the battlefield is going to be like. And what I've got here is the wooden lips on the edge of the table are actually set slightly back from the actual 6x4 board. So I can actually slot them down to keep them in place a little bit. This one then wedges up against the wall, and I use the bit of blue tack just to overlap the 2 corners so it tends not to flap backwards. And you can see there I'm just tucking it in. The next one, and you can see I'm just sliding it down between the gap, lining it up, and then I actually use 2 big bulldog clips to actually just keep it all together once it's all in place, which I didn't do here, but you can actually just see them down on the front of the table underneath. So then I'm just spreading the mat out, making sure it butts right up to the edges. You can see there I was a little bit short, so I'm just trying to pull it all the way up to the edge. Making sure it stays nice and flat, of course, as well. You can see there it is actually curling up at the back a little bit, probably because it's been rolled up, but just trying to keep it nice and flat and cover everything over. Next thing, of course, is looking at the terrain. Now, again, I knew what kind of terrain I wanted before I even started setting up this game. I knew I wanted to use my Imperial ruins. So all of my Imperial ruins are just here under the table, which you can see me getting out. And there's also a box under the table as well. So what I do when I'm setting the terrain up, I think about, is there enough cover on the left-hand side of the table, the right-hand side of the table, the front and the back, because obviously we don't know what deployment type we're going to end up having. So I do like to try and keep it random. What I do when I'm setting the terrain out as well, I do try and keep it sort of in line with what details are on the mat. So you can see here I'm actually trying to set it up around sort of the panels that's on the floor and around the craters and stuff here. So what I'll do is I'll just speed this a bit up here. You can see, of course, I am putting all the terrain out. Now, once I've got most of the big stuff in place as to where I want, I'm then going to start and add scatter terrain. So this is like the Sector Mechanicus stuff, so crates, the armored containers, pipes, things like that. And obviously I've got all my scatter terrain in this box, which I keep under the table as well. I do have 2 or 3 different boxes of scatter terrain. Some of it is, of course, fantasy. Some of it is the Sector Mechanicus type stuff. So you can see there I'm getting some of the Sector Mechanicus terrain out actually, and the thermic plasma vents. And then, of course, I'm just placing them around where I think is appropriate. Trying to give it a little bit of an industrial Mars type feel. But obviously with this one I had to bear in mind I needed enough maneuverability to get the knights around. So once I've put the extra little smaller pieces of terrain out, now I start putting the containers and things out in the other box I've got with the scattered terrain in. So I've got a whole host of different things here. Of course, I've got the Games Workshop armored containers. I've got a couple of the old ammo crates and stuff, so like the old cylinder one and things like that. I've got some old wooden ones with like corrugated card in, which look like pretty cool containers. So it's basically setting all them out, and you can see here as well, I'm also using the Crash Tequila. And they're just spreading the containers out, putting them in places that I think would be cool, just help them block like line of sight, give cover to infantry units and things like that as well. So what we then get onto is the next stage, and this is just adding a little bit more detail to the table. Yeah, it looks pretty cool as it is. I've actually got 12 lunch boxes under the table, which I'm obviously trying to pick up now. And what I've got in them is I've got different coloured reindeer moss. So I've got reds and oranges, I've got pinks and purples, I've got white, blues, greens, sorry, and the orange and the reds are separate, and I've got white. I've then also got boxes filled with, this is just little stones from the beach. I've got some with slate in. I've got some white marbly looking rocks. I've got some black slatey looking ones. I've got normal rocks from the beach. I've even got a tub with bark chippings in as well. And what I'm doing here is just adding the small rocks, like especially around the Crash Tequila there, just to make sure that there's not too much of a stark difference between the actual terrain and the table, and try and just blend it in and make it look like a little bit extra cooler. Now obviously I would use whatever rock fits in well, so if I was using, for example, the grassland mat, I would probably use the slate along with green reindeer moss as well. Whereas if I was using, for example, the lava one, I would probably go either white or orange reindeer moss, and I'd probably use the dark red and glossy black stones that I've actually got as well. So it just emphasizes the mood. So obviously on the lava world, I would use this backdrop. On the grassland, I would probably use the blue foresty one, or the purple one that you can see just down the side there as well. What I'm doing here is I'm just adding stones to the backdrop, just so that there's not a very backdrop matte feel, and it just kind of helps it blend in a little bit more. So after all the stones are down, then I start to add bits of the reindeer moss, and I don't just add it to the ground. You can see here I'm putting it up on the tops of ruins, and it is a case of obviously trying to fluff it out a little bit and make it look where it would naturally grow. Now, it is worth noting at this point, the video here, although I've time-lapsed it, that has just took me 20 minutes to set up. And obviously, I'm practiced at doing that. So somebody that may not be as practiced, it may take, 30, 40 minutes to do. So that is it. That is the table set up. Let's have a look at what we do next. Okay, so next step. Now, obviously, I've changed clothes here because I did this in a different day. I knew plenty in advance I was playing Craig. I knew like on the Sunday I was playing Craig on the Wednesday, for example. So what I'm doing here is I'm just making a little bit of a space to basically set the army up. Now, I'm getting my ad mech out here. You can see the knights are already set up. So if you consider this is just me putting my army out, whilst my opponent is also probably doing theirs. So what I'm trying to do is to basically get it put together so it's like an overview shot when I talk through the armies. And you can see now that I've got all the models out, I'm trying to assemble them into essentially, like I said, like a photogenic shot. So you can vaguely make out here that I'm putting the robots at the back, the onagers at the back. Then in the front, I've got the breaches and the destroyers. HQs at the front. And then, of course, the the Vanguard and the Rangers around there near the front as well. So all in all, for me to set that up, that has taken about 5 minutes. So obviously, bear in mind, I know what I was getting out, what models I was getting out and everything. And again, I'm practiced at doing this. So already setting the table up, getting the army out and building my list, I've already put over an hour into the game. Right, so here we go. Craig has obviously turned up on the Wednesday. We've discussed obviously what the armies are doing, things like that. Beforehand, Craig's obviously picked his warlord trait. So we've sort of sat and chatted for about 45 minutes at this point. Make sure this was Craig's first battle report as well, so obviously we have to make sure he was, cool with everything. Where to roll dice when I'm filming, and of course, the whole time I'm filming from this side, which is why I've got the lights behind me. But you've also, like I said, got to consider where you're rolling dice. So there is a space next to the generator here. There's a space near the middle. And that's something that I consider when I'm actually setting terrain up as well. But at this point, I'm double checking with Craig. He understands what's in the list. He knows what models look like, what I've got. I'm double checking the names of things here on my phone because I built the list on BattleScribe. And at this point, obviously, I am now going to be filming the army overview and basically talking through what is in the list. Sometimes this may take 1 or 2 takes, but again, I'm reasonably well versed at this. Right, so here we go. This is Craig's list, which I built because Craig doesn't do admech, so he's very kindly taken the helm of Mars today. And of course, we are running a battalion and a spearhead.
9 points.
9 points to my 5.
Well, yeah.
So Belisarius Call is going to be the warlord to give that 9-inch reroll of hits. Any hits, not failed hits.
Excellent.
So, of course, at that point, I obviously say, let's get deployed and see what mission we're playing. Now, when you watch the battle report, you've already seen the panning shots and the army overview and everything. So what's going to happen now is we're actually going to set the camera up on the tripod. I did this a little bit back to front by accident, but basically what I'm going to do here is set the tripod up and obviously point at me wall of geek so that me and Craig can do the intro that you see. I'm trying to get back into doing the intros a lot more, but you can see here, obviously I did this a little bit out of order. This might have been one of the first things I did, but because I was trying to prepare everything so that the night would run as smoothly and quickly as possible, this is something that I quite often do afterwards. I've even seen the time I've done after the game. Me and Stu, for example, when we played Tyranids versus Thousand Suns, we did this afterwards. So I'm just basically attaching my camera to the tripod, and at this point, like I said, we're going to get rid of the backdrop and then film the intro. Going over the armies again, though, took around about another 5 minutes, and then setting the camera up like this, doing the intro and everything. Again, this is another 5 minutes or so that it's taken to do it. And you can see there that we're standing and doing the intro there as well. So once that is done, we then obviously discuss deployment. And we roll off, we place the objective markers. And as we go through, we're then basically starting to deploy. You can see here we ended up with the Vanguard deployment, so we're measuring up here. And then we're going to alternate deployments. Now, of course, because I had the Imperial Knights, this didn't take as long as it maybe would have. So it was a lot quicker. Obviously, Craig having to think a lot more about his placement as opposed to me. If I had a different army, for example, if this was Harlequins or Dark Eldar, I would be thinking a lot more about my placement. And there we go, we are finally deployed. And that has taken us around about 35 minutes to film that intro, as well as then set up the deployment. So as it stands now, we're sort of just over 2 hours into recording the battle report, and we haven't even started the game yet. The only dice we've rolled was for objective markers and sides. So we're just putting the backdrop back on here. And of course, what I'm doing here is I'm taking panning shots, zoomed right in, and of course getting the thematic shots. And then I did do the green screen over the top when I edited it. But obviously at this point I'm just talking to Craig as we're doing the panning shots as well. Alright, so here we go. We're about to start the battle report, and what I need to remember at this point is to remember as many things as possible. Talk about the mission, what deployment it is, and basically at this point, this is when I'm introducing the game properly. Although I've actually then, I've introduced obviously in front of the wall of geek, I've gone through the armies and everything. This is where I'm saying, this is deployment, this is the mission, this is where the objectives are. This is the deployment type. This is where Craig has put his things. This is where I put my things. This is what's in reserve. And I've got to try and remember all of that whilst focusing on where I'm actually pointing the camera as well. And of course, we then eventually get to the point where we come to do the roll-off and then move into the first game turn.
Oh, come on, Craig. God, 4.
So Knight's turn 1. So after the roll-off, I ended up going first. So Knight's turn 1, you can see here I'm actually drawing my cards. I don't do all of this on camera. So what I do is I would draw the cards. I would then do all of my movement, obviously thinking about that, whilst not necessarily doing it live. Is a little bit easier. It obviously helps minimize the actual volume of videos that I have to actually edit. So we select the cards. Craig is working out his Canticles of the Omnissiah here. Of course, he does get to choose them for turn 1 for AdMech. Basically, we draw the cards, have a think about how we're going to achieve them. And I'm not the type of guy that's like, well, I'm not going to help your opponent. You know, in a tournament setting, you know, you wouldn't advise your opponent what to do. But in battle reports and stuff, I do engage with my opponent and basically say, well, you know, you could do this, you could do that, things like that as well, which you probably heard a lot of in the videos, but obviously we do discuss it a lot off camera. So at this point, obviously, I'm already discussing with Craig what I'm going to do and then working out the movement before I then bring the camera back to record the actual movement. Okay, so you can see here I'm obviously pre-measuring the range of my guns and everything. I'm making sure that I get everything in position and I know things are in position and are within range, rather than starting to record and thinking, oh, well, is that gun in range? And then trying to have a tape measure whilst trying to film and trying to measure stuff as well isn't always practical. So I've pre-measured everything. I know what's going to happen. I know what's moved. And at this point, I would then explain why I've moved stuff where and things like that, who's going to shoot at what, and then of course go into the shooting phase. Now going into the shooting phase, I obviously double check strength of weapons, damage, AP, see what the toughness is I'm going to shoot at, and see what the save is. Now in this instance, because I know the AdMech army, I know what my weapons are going to do to the AdMech. I don't need to double check with Craig or ask, which obviously would take a little bit longer with an unfamiliar army that you may not play against. The reason I know this is because the AdMech, of course, is my army itself. Now, it's worth noting as well, at this point, we're already 2.5 hours in and I've only done my turn 1 movement phase. So you can see already the amount of time that goes into the battle report itself from setting the table up. It is a lot longer than what people might have thought. So what we'll do is we'll continue with the rest of the battle report. Of course, me and Craig exchanging opinions or stats, things that we're going to have a look at and obviously play the battle report. So we check what we're going to do, then we'll film that section, then we'll stop the camera, then we'll say, right, you've got the onagers there, which one do you want to shoot first? Craig will say, right, I'll shoot that one. Check that we've got a space near them models to roll the dice in, and then of course I'll start the camera again. So right, this onager is going to be shooting at this night. Craig's got D3 shots with the neutron laser, and he'll roll that on camera. And then, of course, I know what strength it is and what my armor save and things like that are. And that's how the whole battle report goes. Of course, we draw the cards, do the movement, and then to save time and editing, I film the cards and then go up and say, right, this is moved here, this is moved here, this is moved here. Then go on to the shooting, of course, stagger it like that. Same with charges. We also discuss who's going to be charging where, just so that I know where to point the camera, and of course where the dice can be rolled at as well. Okay, so there we go. The battle report is now over. Obviously, I didn't film the entire thing with the webcam because I had to create like a 4 or 5 hour footage, which you don't want to watch even time-lapsed. So the battle report itself took around about 3.5 hours to actually film once we started the first turn. So obviously we'd already taken just over 2 hours to set everything up, to do the army overviews, to deploy and everything like that. So 2.5 hours before we've even started the game. The night battle report did take 3.5 hours. Like I said, it was quite a bit quicker because if you consider I only had 5 models. If I've got something a little bit more complex to play, I need to think about positioning more, it takes me longer to move. I've got more units, it takes me longer to roll the dice. I'm then filming more, I'm checking more rules. So naturally it takes a little bit longer. So some battle reports can take up to 5 hours for the actual game itself. So altogether, like I said, with everything that we've done for the intro, you're already looking at 6 or 7 hours of actual game time. Then there's all the packing away, which obviously I haven't included time for that. But obviously to pack all of that battlefield and everything away, I'm fortunate that I can leave my table set up, and if I can't, if I haven't got time or if I'm too tired after the game, I can actually leave it and just put it away the next day. But then the next stage, that is not it for the battle report. Next comes the editing, and this takes nearly as long as everything that we've just done. So the first thing that I actually do is upload all the information from my memory card, copy it over to the PC, and of course I do use Adobe Premiere to edit all of my videos in. So I'm getting Premiere open. I do use Photoshop for my thumbnails. But as far as the rest of it goes, you can see here I'm actually looking at the memory card on my computer, checking all the videos, and then I'm going to be copying it over into a folder on my actual PC. And of course you can see here all the battle reports and everything there I've still got stored. And of course it then takes time to copy over. Now if you consider this battle report, like I said, was a little bit shorter than normal. I ended up with about 1 hour and 50 of footage. That equated to about 8.5 gig. A 2.5 hour battle report, for example, a full 2000.1 with more models and stuff, you're talking about 12 to 14 gig. It doesn't transfer over quickly. That takes around another 15 minutes. Now, obviously, at that point, while it's transferring over, I can go off, I can do other things and let the computer kind of operate itself while it's doing that. But then once that's all copied over, the next stage is then importing it into Adobe Premiere. So you can see here, of course, I'm starting the project. And I've got to go through the directory, find all of the information, all of the images, videos rather, and I'm actually now importing them into Premiere itself. I'm also going to be importing my intro video, and of course any other music and things that I'm actually going to be doing and adding to the intro as well. You can see here in the bottom corner, you can see the blue flipping up there, just as it's importing all of the videos. So what I do is I then start creating a timeline. So of course, first video that goes in will be the intro video, and I know that straight away. Then highlight all of the rest of the videos and put them straight in to Premiere. Now I know that the first couple of clips here don't need to be included because this is the army overview. So I don't want them to be first. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm actually removing them from the timeline for the moment, because what I want at the beginning is actually the panning shots. Now I didn't film the panning shots until much later when recording the game. I was already actually deployed. So what I'm doing here is I know that is the army overview selection. So I'm actually moving that up and creating the space. Now I know obviously that's a long footage, probably 5 minutes long. But each of these small ones here that you can see me clicking on, I know they're the panning shots because they're only a few seconds each. So what I'm doing is I'm highlighting all of them so that I can then move them backwards to the actual front of the video itself. So what I'm doing is I'm just separating the sound and the video so that I don't overlap the other ones, and of course just moving it down the timeline back to the beginning because I want these to appear straight after the Dark Artisan intro video. Of course you can import them in a different order, personal preference. Now I've just moved that up even further because I know that the third clip there, the third long one, was actually me and Craig doing our intro there. So I'm just zooming back in here, and you'll notice here I've actually kept all the sound on a separate line because me and Craig were actually talking over the panning shots here. So what we'll do at this point is remove all of these sound clips because I don't need them. And I'll be putting music in later. And what I'm doing here is I'm just watching all of the shots to make sure that nothing's out of focus, that I keep things in focus and everything. And you'll notice there's one that I actually do end up clipping slightly. Might be this one actually. There, so that one was out of focus, so you can see there I've deleted that one, and then this is the next one. And you can see here I'm watching that whilst deleting the music as well because I know I don't need the noise that's going on in the background. And there's my Knight Preceptor conversion. And there's the last of the panning shots. So of course, here is me and Craig. In fact, sorry, before we jump onto that, I'm now going to be doing the title. So obviously Warhammer 40,000 Battle Report, Admech versus Knights. And I tend to keep this very, very simple, straight to the point. So I'm creating a box here. Of course, I would change it to the colour depending on what army I'm using. So obviously, if I'm using my Eldar, I would probably use purple. If I'm using my Necrons, I would use blue, and so forth. What I'm doing is I'm actually, rather than just having the plain block, I'm actually creating a gradient here so that it blends from red through to black. But what I'm also looking to do is change the opacity so that it's faded rather than it blocking everything out. I still want you to be able to see through it a little bit. So I've changed that to 35%. And of course, I'm going to do that with each of the 4 corners. And there we go, you can still see through. Next up is to do the text. So obviously I need to go here. Now, I then have to change the text back to full block colouring. So just going back to white with that. and typing out Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer 40k Battle Report. And then changing it to block color of white, and of course back up to full 100% opacity. Now, of course, at this point, I am already in to editing around about 10 minutes. Now, of course, I am well versed in this. I've done this a lot. I know exactly where I'm going and what I want to do in Premiere. If you're not as familiar with it, it takes a little bit longer. What I'm doing though, rather than making that whole thing again now, is I am copying it. I'll just change the title of it to Title 2, because I know that I want Adeptus Mechanicus versus Knights, and I want to use the same background. So everything's already there for me. I'm just going to highlight the words and change it to Imperial Knights versus Admech. And basically that saves me a lot of time doing it, and you'll see when I do the turn numbers later on, it makes quite a big difference. So what I'm doing here is I'm picking what music I would like to be on the intro. And you can see here I do use a lot of Kevin MacLeod. They are license free, available on YouTube to download from incomtech.com. And of course I've got quite a few here, and I need to think about which one I want to use. 9 times out of 10 I can't remember what they are, and I have to actually put it on the battle report to remember what it sounds like. So yeah, you can see here I'm putting this in and I'm extending it so I can see where there's a dip in the music here, for example, on the right hand side next to where the intro for me and Craig is. So here we go. I'll now listen and make sure that it fits in. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm actually now adjusting the volume, because I know there's a dip in the level of volume here. So I'm actually now going to lower that so that it actually fades out. You can see here the overlay is also appearing as you go through. So I'm actually checking multiple things here at the same time. Checking that the overlays for the banners are working, and of course the music is working to the right degree of volume as well. So of course I'm just checking the volume there, make sure it's not overpowering when me and Craig start talking. And what I need to do though is, because obviously if the video there had me walking in from the side, I've basically started, worked out where I start saying welcome to the channel, and then I'm deleting that portion of the video there and moving everything back up. And then checking the volume again, making sure it blends in fine. What I want to do is create just an ever so small gap between the last image and then when I move up in. Of course, at the end of this, when I say let's check out the armies, I then have to walk around and press stop on the camera again, so I need to cut that section of it out, but I know there was nothing wrong in the middle. So there, I've stopped it there because I know that's the end, and that's when I'll then walk around and stop the camera and delete that section in the middle as well. And then move the rest of it back up. So then I'm copying the title again, pasting it, but then I'm going to change it to Imperial Knight. And then what we do is, because I know this is the Imperial Knight Army Overview, I'm putting the title there, double click it, and of course everything's already made for me, so I'm just deleting out the AdMech bit, and the banner is essentially there. There you go, pops straight up like that. Now obviously I know there was nothing wrong with the way that I went over the army, so I'm now jumping to the end just to make sure that I finish the video off properly, and if there's anything I want to cut out, I can then cut it out right at the end.
Yeah, melter gun, and of course the chain glaive. He's going to get reroll ones whilst within 6 inches of the Knight Precinct.
Yep, so I'm happy with that. I've stopped it again. I'm then copying the Imperial Knight versus AdMech piece again, pasting it and relabeling this one AdMech. And then what I'll do is I'll put that above the AdMech Army Overview and then edit that to remove the Imperial Knight part of it. Now obviously at this point, if I've got two different armies, I would probably have two different coloured banners. So what I do is when I do the Army Overview one, say for example I did this one in blue, I would then copy this one for each of the Adeptus Mechanicus turns as you go forward. So again, I know most of that is fine because I did it in one take. And again, that's down to experience. Obviously, I would suggest, especially when I started, I would listen to that entire section. But I'm just double checking the end bit there. And then this is when we go into talking about the deployment. So of course I'm going over mentioning the mission, where things are deployed, where the objective markers are, and just double checking that I covered everything that I need to, and making sure that it's sufficient and watchable for you guys once it's fully edited.
You know, with a whole 5 models. So we've got objective 1, we've got objective 6 back here, number 2, number 3, number 4.
Now you'll notice at this point in editing, I'm only, 8 minutes into editing now, but I've actually spent 20 minutes doing that. Just putting the overlays and stuff on, the music, and making sure things is in the right order. This is of course where I mentioned that Craig couldn't roll his seized dice flat.
I have never seized in my life in the last 6 months. And I'm not starting that. No, it's cock one. It needs to be flat.
So then here we go. This is Imperial Knight turn 1, so I'm copying the Imperial Knight banner.
So Knight's turn 1. Right, so here we
and then just changing it to show Imperial Knight's turn 1. And then what I'll do is each turn I'll copy turn 1, paste it, change it to turn 2. When I get to turn 3, I'll copy turn 2. And you notice here as well, this is where you now see I've shown me cards and shown where all of me knights have moved to and what I'm going to be doing. So obviously straight away, all of that section where me and Craig spent time discussing and I was actually moving, you can see now essentially I've skipped ahead in time to the end of the movement phase, beginning of the psychic or shooting phase, depending on the army. So of course at this point I'm explaining what's happened, what's gone on, what the plan is, what I'm going to be doing. And I'll continue through the rest of the battle report, seeing if there's anything that I need to cut out, and of course clipping stuff like I did with the intro side of it, adding the extra banners as I go through as well, and making quite a lot of time if I say I'm just going to check that. What I'll do is I'll actually cut that piece off the end of the video, and then actually you won't even hear that at all. So at this point, I've already spent 15-20 minutes editing just the first 8 minutes of the footage. So that's double the amount of time for the intro, and that's not even the whole intro done. which if you've seen the battle report already, you'll know there's a few little differences and stuff on there. But essentially what I now do is sit and watch the entire battle report. You can see there, it's an hour and 49 minutes. Which, if we add the times up, 6 hours till the end of the game, another 15-20 minutes editing this, plus an hour and 50 for the rest of the battle report. So you're talking just over 8 hours by the time I've watched this back and put the banners on it as well. Okay, so the next part is just finishing off the intro, adding that little bit extra to it. So what I'm doing here is I'm using Adobe After Effects to create a green screen effect for some flames and little particles, very industrial feel. So what I've got here is I've got a green screen video of some dust particles, and we've rendered it ready to use in Adobe Premiere. And I'm importing that into Premiere now, and it basically looks almost like another video file. Now, of course, I keep all my green screen effects in one place. There we go. And of course, me being me, totally forgot which one it was. But then we import that, much like we do the videos. It just does take slightly longer with it being a different type of file, and make sure that everything is good to go. And you'll notice when I did the banners at the beginning as well, I actually put them a level up. The reason I put them the level up is because I wanted them to be above or on top of the layer of the actual green screen itself. So there we go, there's the green screen section, and I need to make sure I don't overlay the music, get rid of the music, which is actually blank for that. And it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see parts of it there. I'm just making sure it lines up with the whole screen. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually locking all of my video so that I can copy and paste each part of this as we go through. So there, I'm just making sure I'm at the end. And you can see there, literally pasting it again and again and again to go over there, and of course trim it with the small gap there. And then when we go back and re-watch it, what we're going to do now is add all of the crossfades basically onto the entire footage. So that's the difference between one clip and the next. I don't like it to just go bang, bang, bang. So I predict the black, so there's a split second of blackness before the next video. But what happens is it doesn't actually work very well with the banners in the green screen. So I have to do a crossfade on this one. So you can see there I've locked the row with all of the actual video clips on. I've then highlighted the rest of them and done them as a crossfade instead, so it blends in and then blends out, and there's no interference with the other layers. So you can see here, this is what it now looks like. Now, obviously, at this point, my computer is struggling because I am using OBS to record, as well as try and play everything that's going on in Premiere. You can see there is a lot going on in that one section in Premiere. It does use a lot of RAM on the computer, so you can't really do anything else. I'm amazed it actually managed to record at this point. But I just double checked it there, and the first crossfade wasn't quite the way I wanted. It flickered a little bit, so I'm actually just changing it to make sure that it is dipped to black at that point. And again, just double checking here. There we go. Just double checking, of course. I know the lag is due to the computer struggling at this point. You can see just the flakes going over the top, of course, with the music there as well. So adding the finishing touches to the intro and everything there, along with the green screen effects and all the crossfades for the rest of the battle report, that's taken me about another 10-15 minutes to do on top of that. So, after that, we're pushing on sort of 8.5 towards 9 hours. Now at this point, I'm now adding the credits to the end of the video, and as you can see here, I actually have a Word document with mine pre-typed out, so I don't have to type this out again every time. And what I'm doing here is, although it's over the top of me and Craig, that just happens to be where the cursor is. But yeah, I've pasted it, and then obviously making sure that it scrolls right off screen. And then I'm going to include that at the end of the battle report. And then just extend it out to about 30 seconds. And then I need to make sure that it actually starts scrolling rather than too soon, so that you can see there straight away at the beginning of the footage, it's all the way at the top. So I need to make sure that that comes down and starts off screen. And of course I need to make sure I've got the right crossfade in there. And then I also need some ending music as well. So what I try to do is I try and have a little bit of build up with the music at the end. And then of course I have to listen to make sure it's not too loud, and make sure that I blend it down, increase the gradient of it enough that it can be heard, but that it's not too much. Of course I'm just trying to get in the right position there so that it builds up just as the actual footage finishes, and it goes into the clip at the end with the credits on. So here I'm just turning the overall volume of it down. Again, just checking the volume because I kind of want it a bit more as like a background noise instead of music essentially. But then when it gets to the credits at the end, then I want it to turn up and be loud enough so that it is actually music.
Yeah. Doom's the Ark.
So of course I'm just listening here, make sure that I hear everything. Still hear me and Craig talking, but there's just a little bit of music, build up and tension in the background.
What you're
So again, doing this ending, although I am as prepared as what I am with the Word document and
That's it.
everything
Thank you very
already
much for watching,
included
guys.
on
Of course,
there,
thank you very
this
much
is still
to,
taking me sort of
Craig
another 5 or
joining
10
me.
minutes to get
It
this
has been
bit
an
done
absolute
as
pleasure.
well.
You will be back very soon, I hope.
Yeah.
And maybe Knights will be back very soon. So thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you again very soon.
So what I'm doing is I'm just zooming in there because I know that I want to end it on the dip of the music there. So I'm deleting that. I'm then making it a little bit louder just as it finishes. And then at the end, I will be making it fade out. And of course that was playing through whilst I was also doing that. And that is the project complete. That is not the video made yet. At this point, I then export the video. Now, depending on how much work is put into it, how many layers and things are at the beginning, depends on how long it's going to take. As of course, the length of the video also has an impact as well. What I find is it's around about 150 to 175% of the length of the battle report. So, for example, if this battle report was 2 hours, I would find it would probably be about 3 to 3.5 hours to render the video into a single MP4 file. And that's what I'm doing there. So at this point, I'll press export. It then takes a little bit of time just to check all the files are in the right place and it knows where to pull them from, and of course amalgamate them into one video. Now, when this starts, I have to turn OBS off because obviously this uses a lot of RAM on the computer, and I tend to let this happen overnight. So you can see here the time's actually increasing whilst it's working out how long it's actually going to take. So like I said, I'll probably press render at this point, and then let it actually render overnight. Or if I'll go to work on a morning, I'll press render on a morning, and then leave it to essentially run for the full period. Even after all of that editing, it's took around about 9.5 hours to get to this point. It's then taking another 2.5, 3 hours, depending on the length of the video, to then render it. And believe it or not, it doesn't stop there. Okay, so now we come back to make the thumbnail for the battle report, and this is my standard template that I use, and I just tend to change the name or whatever it is. And you can see here I've dropped Belisarius Call, his picture that I did take after the battle report, and placing him in roughly the right place. And decide to put him on this side. I then also need to, of course, add in the Imperial Knight. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to transform this picture and rotate it so that he's actually facing the other way. I tend to try and have the warlords facing each other. We'll then include the Imperial Knight by dragging him over. Bearing in mind at this point I've already copied the two pictures from my phone over onto the computer. There we go, there's the knight, exactly where I want him, but you'll notice as well that the image is actually cutting off part of Belisarius' Call. So once I've resized that and placed him in the right place, we'll look to trim that image down a little bit. So then I'm going to use the crop tool to basically select the image that I want to keep. and I've also imported the versus sign at this point as well. So we'll resize that and put that in the middle here. Make sure it's in the right place, and of course Photoshop does provide guidelines so that you can keep things in track. Purple lines there, of course, showing roughly where they should be. Now, apologies for not being able to see everything that I've done here, especially when I cropped the Imperial Knight. Unfortunately, I was doing this whilst rendering. Whilst it's not normally an issue, the fact that I was recording through OBS at the same time meant that it did become a slight issue. So I maybe should have done this before I'd pressed render. So you can see there, of course, I've then changed the wording. So just to make the thumbnail alone, again, I'm pretty well practiced at this, but it's another 5 minutes added on. And I know I've said like this is 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes, but all of them add up, and it ends up, you know, you've easily added an extra hour just doing silly little things like the thumbnail and bits and pieces like that as well. So of course, once the thumbnail's all done, I am going to save it down as a JPEG ready to upload to YouTube as well. And the final piece is to, of course, upload the video to YouTube. After all that rendering, you know, we're probably at around about 12 hours, depending on how long that's taken to render. And at this point, I'm now uploading that battle report. So you can see here how long it's going to take to upload. Now, I actually have a faster internet connection. I actually pay for 20 meg upload. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding all of the tags. Now it doesn't let me add the thumbnail until it's actually fully processed, but again, I will be adding the thumbnail at that point. So I'm adding all of the tags as you go here. But also what I'm going to do is add the description. And I have a pre-typed out description with all of the links to, of course, Battle Bunker, patronage, and PayPal donations all listed in there as well, which I actually copy and paste from the pre-made Word document that you can see on the taskbar there. And of course, the more tags you get in, the more likely your video is to be found. There's a whole algorithm to YouTube tags, which is a whole host of a whole nother video, but there's plenty of channels out there if you want more information on that. But I'm literally just typing in everything that I can think that will cover or what people would search for, and that would hopefully bring my battle report up. You can see there the time just to upload that sort of 8.5 gig file. It's well over an hour to upload, and that is with 20 meg upload speed. In addition to that, though, once it has uploaded, it then has to process on YouTube and basically fully go through YouTube's process to make sure it's playable. When it is uploaded as well, for some reason YouTube only put it in low resolution, so that it is viewable straight away, and then upgrades it to high resolution once everything is done. So here you go, I've cut and pasted everything that's on here. But what I'm now going to do is basically change who is in the battle report. So there's Warhammer 40k battle report between Harry and Lucy, Harry and Craig now. And then of course I'm scrolling down and I'll be changing the armies here. So it's Harlequins versus Chaos Daemons. So of course it's Imperial Knights versus Adeptus Mechanicus. So what I'll do is, once I've added all of this information, bear in mind I know it's already 2,000 points and I know it was cleanse and capture, so I don't need to change any more of that because it's already pre-typed out. And that is almost it. You just got to wait for the thumbnail, press publish, and once it's fully processed, well, yeah, you can press it there. Once it's fully processed, it will then upload itself. and hopefully you'll get the notification if you have pressed the bell button. And there we have it, guys. So including rendering time and upload time, which essentially I don't need to be there for, you're looking, I think it was about 12 hours by the time it's rendered, plus another hour and a half to upload. You're looking at 13.5 hours went into that battle report that I did with Craig. And bearing in mind what you see is an hour and 45 of a game, that is how much time has gone into it. So, I know a lot of people tend to get angry or leave negative comments and stuff for battle reports saying you did this wrong, you did that wrong. But please be nice to all the other YouTubers, guys. They put a lot of work and a lot of effort into their battle reports. Some probably a lot more than others. Some people have different styles. You know, it depends on what level of editing or what style of filming they do. For example, some people do end of phase recaps. So please be nice to the YouTubers, guys. They're all hard workers, and bearing in mind that they do this in addition to their main jobs. For example, Winters still works full time. Liam, the Geeks lads, everybody. You know, it's a full-time hobby, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, I probably put more time into Warhammer 40,000 and YouTube battle reports and stuff than what I do at work, and I work 40 hours a week. So please be nice to them, guys, and of course show your support. And of course, if you would like to support me, Phil and Lucy on the Dark Artisan, to help us continue expanding our ranges and cover more products, please support us on Patreon. Alternatively, you can donate via PayPal to the email address in the description below. But I hope this has given you an insight into what goes on behind the battle report, guys, and just exactly how long it does take. So I hope it's been informative. Thank you very much for sticking with me if you've watched this video all the way till the end. Please leave a comment and let me know what you think of the video. Did you enjoy it? Is it not something you want to see? Yeah, let me know, guys. So thank you very much for everybody that has supported the channel, and thank you very much to all of my Patreons so far as well. But until next time, guys, see you soon.